Hello and welcome to Bookmas Day 10. Oh, there we go, my sad little tree. Today I'm going to be doing my end of the year book tag. I saw this on Destiny Sidwell's channel. I don't think that she made up the question. There are 22 questions and they're just all about what I read this year. So let's just get right into it. The first question is most disappointing read of the year. So if we're going like completely just did not like it, like just was not what I expected at all, I'm gonna go with Pucked. Now, I didn't know what I was getting into with Pucked, okay? I don't even like talking about Pucked because I don't even really like admitting that I read Pucked. It is just like this super spicy. And the thing is, when it wasn't being what it was, when it wasn't being cringy and it wasn't like just spice scenes, it was actually kind of cute. But there was just some stuff in that book that I just could not get past. So I'm not even really going to talk about it, but that was just a big old disappointment. Other biggest disappointment is The Wrong Heart by Jennifer Hartman. And I'm going to talk more about this later in another question. But I love Jennifer Hartman books. I love Lotus. I love Still Beating. I love June 1st. I love The Stars Are on Our Side. I just didn't love The Wrong Heart. And I don't know why. I liked it. It was fine. But I just don't know why it didn't. It was still good because it's Jennifer Hartman and it was such like a good concept, and I just love her ideas. I love her stories. I love her characters, but it was just, I don't know. It was the one that I've connected to the least so far. So I think that was a little disappointing, but it was still good because it's her. Second question is Underdog Book of the Year, and I'm gonna go with Sloppy Firsts. This is a book that came out like ages ago, and it's like this YA, like coming of age, high school, some romance and there's some like whatever, but it's just like a plain old like fiction coming of age. And I picked this out for my video where I let my 5 senses choose my books, and this was my site. Like I picked it solely based off what the cover looked like, and it actually turned out so cute. And it's not my typical genre of read, it's not my typical like subject matter. But it just turned out to be very cute, and there's like 5 books in the series, and I bought the second one. Like I am down to read this series. It was just so relatable, even though it was written like in a different time that she was going through high school than when I went through high school. It still was like same things, different generation. It's just so relatable and quirky and cute. So that is my underdog. Next is a book that is overhyped. And bestie Megan, I love you, but The Summer I Turned Pretty. Okay, so to be fair, I watched the TV show first, and it's not really fair, I don't think, to compare the TV show and the books, because the TV show has so much more going for it. There's just so many more characters, so many more subplots, that it almost makes the book like boring by comparison, but it's not even the book's fault. Like if I just read the book, it's a good book. I rated it 4 stars. And I think I rated the sequel 4 or 3.5. They're good books. It's like apples to oranges with the book and the show. And I watched the show first, so it's a little hard for me to rate it. But it's just not my typical romance. It's like, there's not a lot going on. And it's also considered YA, and so the characters are a little immature. I don't know. It wants to be taken really seriously, but I don't think it needs to be taken that seriously. Does that make sense? I still like it. Don't come for me. I still like The Summer I Turned Pretty, but I just think that it's like, especially with the show and stuff, it's like there's too much hype. Like I don't even know if I'll read the 3rd book just because like I kind of already know what happens, and I would just rather see the show's version of it. I'm sorry. Next, on to an easier question. Favorite couple or couples, and first, easy peasy, Win and Harriet from Happy Place. I know some people were mad in Happy Place about like the miscommunication, but it was handled so truthfully, and I feel like that is something that like that real couples go through. And they just deserved so much to be happy. They were just going through stuff, you know? They're so cute. Wynn is such a sweetie. Harriet is just, we will get to some of her quotes later. Just the way she thinks, the things she says. I love her. I'm obsessed. And my other couple is Russ and Aurora from Wildfire. Russ is just so soft. He's such a soft boy. And Aurora is a soft girl too. They're just such sweeties together. Like, I don't know, they're so good for each other. And Aurora's like the wild girl, but like she's like not, like she's a soft sweetie. They were just so fluffy cute. And that's really all I have to say about that. Couples either they just make you feel something or they don't, you know? And these just made me feel something. Next is kind of similar with favorite main characters. And I recently read Love Light Farms, and I did like the main girl too. I liked all the characters in that book pretty much. They all had like fun personalities, but the man in Love Light Farms, Luca, he is so thoughtful. He cares so much about the main female character. He like listens to what she says and like knows how to cater to her because he knows her so well and has taken the time to know her so well and so thoughtful. He's just the best, and he's like so touchy. Like I mean, I don't want to say he's very physical with her. That doesn't sound right. Like his love language is physical touch, and I love it so much. And I'm kind of an opposite end. I read The Way I Used to Be back in, I think, January of this year, and then the sequel, The Way I Am Now, came out, and I read it in November. Slight spoilers for The Way I Am Now. If you plan to read that book, or if you plan to read The Way I Used to Be, maybe skip this. But Eden and Josh are everything to me. The banter is so effortless. They care about each other so much, and they just go through so much together, but they still like are always drawn back to each other and just love each other and care about each other so much. They just really, I don't know how else to put it, but they just really understand each other. Like they get it. They are it for each other. They get each other. Oh, I love them so much. Next is a book that surprised you, and I'm gonna go with Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I know this whole series is very popular. It's like a companion novel series, and I'm not a mafia romance girl. That's not normally my thing, but I heard some things about Brutal Prince and I was like, it's on Kindle Unlimited, I'll read it. It was so good. I'm over here like, why am I not reading mafia romances? And I still don't even like really care. It didn't like make me care about mafia romances, but I'm like, this is one of the good ones. It was just a wild ride, and the two main characters are both a little crazy, but in a fun way. They're both very passionate, and they just ended up taking that passion and putting it towards each other, and they were just such a good match in that way, and they just cared about each other so much. It was very tense at times, and like, I don't know, it very much surprised me because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be into this, but I was. Next is a new author you discovered, and I have two. The first is Lauren Roberts, who wrote Powerless. I followed Lauren for a long time on TikTok before she released Powerless. I was anxiously waiting, highly anticipating the release of Powerless, and now I'm highly anticipating the Powerless sequel, Reckless. So she got traditionally published after, but when I first read it, there were a lot of typos in the book and like some repetitive writing and stuff, but it was her first book, self-published, and I still loved it so much. And so I'm like, it being her very first like debut novel, I can't wait to see how she gets better and better. Like, she can only get better, but it's already so good. So Lauren Roberts, and then Kate Canterbury, I read in a jam, and again, it's just one of those that it just clicked for me. It just did something. The setting, the characters, the dialogue, the banter, I just loved it all. And I haven't read any more Kate Canterbury yet, but as soon as I finished In a Jam, I was like, oh, I need to read everything she's ever written. And I haven't yet because I have a billion books to read, but she is going to be on my list. If I ever just need like that feeling, I am turning to Kate Canterbury because In a Jam was just so good. And she wrote so well about homemade jams that I went to 2 different farmers markets and went and bought 3 jars of jam. I've never done that before in my life, but because she wrote about it and she made it sound so delicious and amazing, I went and got me some jam. Next is happiest read, and Destiny took this to mean like, what did she have like the best time reading? Like, what was she the happiest reading? And so I'm gonna take it the same way, and I have Happy Place, obviously. I went into Happy Place knowing I was gonna love it. As soon as Emily Henry announced Happy Place and said it was like a ex's fake dating found family, I knew it was gonna be a 5 stars, and it is. But even so, I started reading it, wasn't planning on like highlighting or tabbing or anything. And then I get a few pages in and I'm like, oh, I gotta go grab a highlighter, because immediately it was just like amazing line after amazing line after amazing line. It's no secret that Emily Henry's writing is top tier. Just like, even when I go in expecting to love it and expecting it to be a 5 star, it still surprises me with how good it is. Just had such a good time. It also helps that at the time I was on a month-long vacation in Arizona, and that was just a really good time in my life. So where I was and also how good the book was just combined for just a great reading experience. Next is the most frustrating read. I don't know if any book really frustrated me, but I think the closest would be The Last Word by Taylor Adams. And this is just because I am rarely a thriller reader. I do enjoy a good thriller every now and then, but I'm not just going for thrillers every time, and it's because of how stressed they make me. Immediately upon picking up this book, there's a dog in the book, and so I have to go search up, does the dog die? Spoiler alert. No, the dog doesn't die. Amazing, love that. But if I hadn't looked it up, there's several points in the book where I would think that the dog might die. So that was just anxiety inducing. And then it's one of those, which this is what to me makes a good thriller, but it also stresses me out. It's one of those where like you think one thing, you think it's all settled, and then, oh, here's a twist that nope, none of that could have been possible at all. So now here's the new theory. Oh, okay, this is probably what's happening. Nope, can't be that because blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, we've led you to believe this, but actually that didn't happen. And I'm like, okay, yes, that is what makes a good thriller. You know, the twists and turns, and like a tiny seed was planted, but you didn't like see it coming. It wasn't super obvious. But it also just stresses me out. But that's what I'm saying. I wasn't frustrated with it. I was a little frustrated with the ending. It ended up being a happy ending after all. But like the last couple of chapters, I was like, oh my gosh. But it was still good. It's just the fact that it's like one of the only thrillers I read this year. And thrillers frustrate me, I guess, or stress me out at least. Next is the best adaptation, and this is kind of a cheat. I think the only thing, well, I read One True Loves, but I haven't seen the movie that came out. I went and watched the movie for The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I'm currently reading the book right now. And that movie was really, really good. I'm noticing in the book like some key differences, but I'm pretty far in the book, and I would so far say that it is a very like true adaptation, which most of the Hunger Games movies are. I think they're very well adapted. Yeah, I will be finished with that book before the end of the year because I'm currently in the middle of my 24-hour readathon, had to pause it to do this, and I'm reading that book, so I will be done with it. Not quite yet, but it's the only thing that was adapted. Oh, in the summer I turned pretty, but like I said, great TV show, good book, but is it a good adaptation from the book? I don't know, there's so many liberties taken, but whatever, we're going with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Next is the longest book you read, and mine was The Crown of Gilded Bones. It was 645 pages. I love fantasy books. and I love fantasy series, but I'm like, oh my goodness, that was a long book. And it was really good, but it just took me forever because I'm like, how do I just sit here and read 600 pages? Like I need time to decompress, and like it's high stakes and there's stuff happening all the time. It's so fast paced. And I think that's close to the longest book I've ever read. I think they're all right about 600 to 700. And so that was a big feat, but I'm super glad that I finally finished it. I think I'm going to continue reading that series. Obviously, I want to know what happens next, but I think I'll take a little break and I'll get back to it. And then the next is the shortest book you read. I read this random hockey romance on Stuff Your Kindle Day. I got this hockey romance, part of this big series, but this was like the 8th book in the series or the 5th. But I read it anyway just because it was free, and I love a hockey romance. And it was called Holdout, and it was like 240 pages. And if I'm really honest with you, I can't even remember what it was about. I think it was spicy. Maybe it was about, I think this guy moves in with her. I read 2 books from this series because I was like, well, maybe I'll like another one. And they're all by different authors. They're like under the same series, but different authors write each one. It was an interesting thing, but it's the Muyu series if you care. But I think this is the one where it's like a roommate mix-up. She has like a boyish name, and so he like moves in, and he had a fake name, so she didn't know it was him until he moved in. And yeah, obviously they fall in love, but I remember liking it fine. Like it was good, but it was very short. Again, like I said, I think it was 250, maybe either just over or just under 250. Next is favorite cover, and I absolutely love Adore. I think it has a lot to do also with, I got it from Aardvark Book Club, and they do soft touch lamination on their dust jackets and their actual books. But I got the good part from them. And I think that cover is just so cute anyway. It's just adorable. I just love it. And that color of orange really just satisfies something in me. But also the fact that it's soft touch lamination and it's just so smooth to the touch. Also, obviously, Happy Place is a very cute cover. Love the bright pink. And then I really got super cozy vibes from the My Roommate is a Vampire cover. It's very cute. I really like the art style on that for some reason. Next is a book you haven't stopped thinking about, and I'm going with Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Again, I cannot wait for Reckless, and I just keep thinking about how that book ended and how the next one's gonna start. And there's also a very specific Taylor Swift song it reminds me of, and so whenever I hear that song, I am just reminded of the book again and taken back to everything. The other is, I read Thrive and Addicted After All this year, and that's the 4th and the 5th book in the Addicted series, but I just put Addicted After All because it's the final book. I think about this entire series every day, multiple times a day. It lives rent-free in my mind. So that's one that I haven't and will not stop thinking about, especially since I'm still in the middle of, technically in the Calloway Sisters series now, but I'm still like in the middle of their world. Next question is the cringiest book you read. Pucked. And that's all I'll say because I don't want to talk about it. 16 is an unpopular book you loved. I don't think this book was unpopular. I just think a lot of people didn't like it. I just think it wasn't what a lot of people were expecting. I think they were expecting something different from what they got. It was supposed to be a romance. It was like marketed as a romance, and it was, but it was also literary fiction. And then also there's like a big, not plot twist, but like a big underlying thing that gets revealed. And I think a lot of people thought it was like obvious or it was like dumb or I don't know, but I really liked it. It's Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I wanted to read The Bodyguard when it came out, and then I just didn't, and I don't know why, and I don't know why I still haven't. But I just never got to it. And then Hello Stranger came out on Book of the Month, and I got it and I loved it. I thought it was so fun. This girl is a portrait artist, but she loses her ability to see faces when she gets a brain injury. And so she literally can't do her job. She can't paint faces. and she's trying to win this contest and get money, and she like starts to meet people. She meets two guys. She's like falling for them, but she can't even see them. Then she has this cute little dog, and she has this evil stepsister. I thought it was so much fun. I don't know if people just like didn't like it or it just wasn't what they wanted from it, but I really enjoyed my time with it. Next is the highest rated on Goodreads, lowest rated on Goodreads, and do you agree? So speaking of, my roommate is a vampire with the cute cover. That has a 3.5 on Goodreads, and I think that's fair. I rated it a 4, but I think it's a 4 like during October, fall, Halloween time. If you just randomly read it in the middle of the year, I don't know if it would hit the same way, but at the time I read it and what I was looking for at that time, just like a fun fall paranormal romance, it gave me what it needed to give me. I could definitely see it being a 3.5, anywhere from like a 3 to a 4. Maybe a little quick at the end, but also it had an epilogue and I really enjoyed the epilogue, and normally epilogues kind of ruin things for me. I don't know, like I just want to imagine what happens 10 years later. I don't want you to tell me. But this one I liked, and I feel like it tied things up while also keeping them like ambiguous enough. So I remembered enjoying that about it. But yeah, that makes sense to me. Then the highest rated, something I talked about earlier being one of my most disappointing books, The Wrong Heart by Jennifer Hartman. It is rated a 4.49, so almost a 4.5 stars. And I feel like that's a pretty high rating on Goodreads, especially this one like with a lot of ratings. I only rated this a 3.75/4. I think I would go with a 3.75. I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but I don't think about it. I think about all the other Jennifer Hartman books I've read like all the time. Like I'm always thinking about June 1st. I'm always thinking about Still Beating. I'm even always thinking about the Heart Song duet. And I've got this, hang on. An Optimist Guide, Pessimist Guide to Love, and Optimist Guide to Heartbreak. I'm always thinking about Jennifer Hartman books, and I just don't think about this one. I don't know what it was. I don't know if the material just didn't click with me. I'm really not sure. And again, I didn't dislike it. 3.75 is still a great rating, but yeah, 4.49 is it's just too high to me, especially it ranking over, because I did read The Stars Are on Our Side this year. I did read the Heart Song duet. So the fact that it ranked over those, it's a little crazy to me, okay? Technically, the book that actually is the highest rated on Goodreads, but I'm hesitant to include it because it just came out in November. I read an ARC copy of it, I think back in July. It just came out in November and it only has 44 reviews. So I'm like, is that really fair? If it's like, you know, 44 niche people who really liked it, some people who got ARCs, and then, you know, The Wrong Heart has like thousands of reviews from like different kinds of people. But I figured I'd go ahead and tell you about This Kiss by Deanna Roy. Its score is 4.8. That's crazy. I rated it 4. It's a very unique story. It's about this girl who has epilepsy, and she and this boy meet in the hospital. And when she has seizures, sometimes it will trigger her to like lose her memory. And so it's like their love story and like dealing with like her mom, and her mom's like super protective, and just like dealing with her health issues and then like building a life together. It was a very unique concept. High stress because she's forgetting her memory all the time. You can see how stressful that would be. I think a 4 is a good rating. Yeah, I figured I'd mention that one as well. Favorite quotes. So I have sitting with me Happy Place and The Way I Am Now, and I think these are the majority of my favorite quotes. So when I first started reading Happy Place and I first start flipping through the book, I get to this quote. I get to page 48 and I'm like, I need a highlighter. She says, I rarely said his name though. It felt too much like an incantation, as if it would light me up from the inside and he'd see how much I wanted him, how all day long my mind caught on him like a scar in a record. Emily. That is just so, she's so good. She's too good. Another one, this is dialogue. I love this shirt. I grumble. I know, he says, sliding my hair out from under the collar. That's why I brought it. I have to go. I've got somewhere to be. Another one, so much of life is waiting for more of him, and even that torture is bliss. She's like Shakespeare. So I just have the last sentence of this highlighted, but I'll read the whole thing to you. I can't bring myself to say it, to admit that the rest of my life, everything I've worked for has started to feel like set dressing, like loving him is the only essential and everything else is garnish. Emily! I mean, there's just so many I'm skipping so that I don't read you the entire book, but this is her like talking about something she loves to do, but she like doesn't talk about it or admit to it. Afraid people will take me too seriously, then be disappointed when they find out how mediocre I am at it. And somehow, nearly as afraid that they wouldn't take it seriously, that they'd brush it off with a mild, well, everyone needs a hobby, when it feels like so much more. Oh, she just gets it. Moving on to the next book. The Way I Am Now. This one may have slight spoilers for this book or for the book before it. But nothing crazy. This is when her friend is saying, like, I guess even big sweet teddy bears like Steve can be a-holes sometimes. And she says, teddy bears are still bears. So true. This quote is so sad, but she says, I feel like I search my brain for anything, a concrete thought, a fleeting image, a pumpkin. A pumpkin, he asks. No, not a pumpkin, but like a jack-o'-lantern, you know? Okay, he says, nodding. Like someone drew a face on me and carved it into my skin, scooped out my insides, just hollowed out, everything scraped clean, and then lit a fire in me and left me out in the cold. Have you ever heard such a heartbreaking metaphor? Those are the quotes. And I'm sure about a billion things from the Addicted books. Lo saying to Lily, I can't remember the day I fell in love with you, or I can't tell you the day I fell in love with you because I can't remember a day that I didn't. Next question. Most unique concept. I'm gonna give this to the last word because even though I was talking about earlier how much it frustrated me, it was such a cool idea. It's about this girl giving this book a 1-star review, and she like leaves kind of like a hateful review online, and the author sees it and he's like, take it down, and she's like, no. And so then he starts stalking her. She's house sitting at this beach house in the middle of nowhere, and she starts getting stalked by this author, and she's like, surely it can't be him, but like the timeline is not making sense. He's like emailing her, threatening things. So yeah, that is such a wild premise, and it was such a wild book. So next question is a book you read that you would reread, and not to be a broken record, but Happy Place. I'm sure I will reread Happy Place at some point, probably next summer. Next question is just to talk about my reading goal for this year and then my reading goal for next year. My reading goal for this year was 60? Because last year it was 50 and I got to 51. So this year I set it for 60. I've only read 46 so far. I don't think I'm gonna hit 60. I may hit 50. I probably will. We're almost, but we're not even halfway through this month. And like I said, I'm currently in the middle of my 24-hour readathon. So that'll definitely give me some last minute books in there. I feel like 50, like around 50 is a pretty good goal for me. There were some times, some months this year. I think there was one month where I didn't read anything. Maybe one book. Less months like that, obviously, I could go to probably 60. So for 2024, I'll probably set it for 60 just to have the goal there, you know? And then the last question, what books do you want to prioritize in 2024? I do want to get to more fantasy series. I feel like I didn't read as much fantasy as I wanted to this year because every time I go to read a fantasy book, it's like a 5-book series and I just can't commit to all of those at once. And I want to read some nonfiction. I don't think maybe I read one nonfiction this year. I'd love to get into some more like memoirs, and I'm a Christian, so like some religious like devotional books and stuff. Yeah, I definitely have found a better sense for like authors that I don't like or types of books that I don't like. And so every year I am just better catering my reading taste. But that was the last question. That is my end of the year tag. I will probably do a just kind of end of the year wrap up at the very end of December, very beginning of January. Bookmas is almost coming to an end. We have 2 more videos. Please follow me on my Bookstagram, Goodreads, StoryGraph, blah, blah, blah. And other than that, I will see you tomorrow for the next day of Bookmas. Bye!